Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Marvel Knights, issue number 3. Alright, let's get into this. So we got Tini Howard and Donnie Cates on the story. Tini did the script. Artist, Damian Cosiero. I did my best. Matt Mila is the color artist. VC's Corey Petit on letters. Cover artist, Jeff Shaw and Rain Barretto, and variant covers, one by Jay Lee and June Chung, and another by Kari Andrews. Carlos Lau did the graphic design. All right, so we start off exactly where the last issue left off with, Karen Page is a ghost, but you guys can see her. What? I love the portrayal of Punisher, Frank Castle's view on the way that Daredevil acts. His big thing, he's just basically like, dude, this guy could be really angsty once in a while. And that's all that Daredevil is in this issue. He's purely just, wait, you guys can see her, but you saw her grave, right? So you know that she really is a ghost, because she's not really alive, right? Oh my God, somebody smack this guy with a baton that shoots a grappling line, please. Anyhow, the Hulk actually shows up in this and is not very effective, doesn't do much. It's like a temporary thing. I guess his anger is very, I don't know, contrary to itself. It's kind of weird, but that's fine. By the way, I'm kind of, knocking out the things that weren't great about the comic book, but we're going to get to the good stuff in a hot minute. The Hulk rips through the ghost. Like, the ghost of Karen Page goes right through her, but somehow the trench coat, the jacket, the little duster that she's wearing, that seems to get shredded. I don't understand that. Anyway, maybe it's just like specks of whatever, but it actually seems to be pasted to his arm, so I don't understand. Anyway, Punisher, we go back and forth in story. It's not necessarily out of continuity because it is confined to this one book, and I like this. The way that, I think we're mostly familiar with the way that Christopher Priest usually does his out-of-continuity stories, where you'll read the beginning of a story and, okay, now we're going back 40 years, not quite, but, you have to read more than just a single arc. You have to read at least 3 arcs to get an idea of what you read in the first arc, and even then you got the next 2 arcs that you have to deal with that you read that don't have the explanation yet. In this, everything's pretty much explained in this issue, and it's cool. The one thing that isn't explained is who Gina is. Punisher's with this girl named Gina. I probably should have looked this up before, but I think her name was actually Marie, or Mary. I think it was Marie. Marie Castiglione. Like, right, that was the married name. Frank Castiglione is actually Frank Castle's real name. Go check out The Punisher, explained in a minute on Comic Book University. But I'm positive that Gina was not her name. So, no. and they seem to be... I think that the comic book is aware of that. I think Tini Howard is aware of that, because there is one part in the comic book where it says, by being with her, you're breaking a vow. So I think that, that vow would, of course, but the only vow he had was he's going to avenge, he's going to punish the criminals who are just like the ones who killed his wife and kids, So that's cool. And him trying to understand who he is. Like this, I like the art in this, man. I like this. You go from panel to panel to panel, and that's the Punisher symbol that he drew. And it's a crappy Punisher symbol that he drew, but it's him drawing it. It's not the artist necessarily. You kind of get where I'm saying? That's the artist's interpretation of how he would write. And let's be realistic. How many people out there can actually draw a halfway decent skull? First time. In the mirror, baby. All right? Unless you got some practice doing it, which I don't think that Frank Castle in his current state does. But we get to see how he finally decides to go out and go after some of these people with Bruce Banner. I like that he's like, I'm not going after all these people. Like, what is this? This isn't very believable. Thor, really? Meanwhile, Thor happens to be his partner. Did you notice his name was Blake? Donald Blake, a med school dropout. That is freaking awesome. I dug that. He actually goes after this kid who turns out is actually Loki. Now, Loki does his disappearing, his teleportation act once in a while, and Frank goes to tase him. Now, the only way this could have been cooler, this whole, not transaction, this, this occurrence, all right, could have been any better, is if he would have shot at Loki to tase him, and then Loki would have teleported out, and turns out, oh, you just shot your buddy. You just shot Blake, who then winds up turning into Thor. That would have been freaking awesome. Anyway, just when you thought they were going to give up on him, turns out, no, he's actually there. And he's also a rookie cop. And I am going to make a little bit of social commentary in here because they talk about, what's his name? Tony Stark in here. Tony Stark is actually here, and he comments that he's an engineer in this book, but he's not an electrical engineer, or actually he's more of a mechanical engineer, but he can do whatever. He is actually a social engineer in this, which is just so genius. I love that Tini Howard wrote that. Anyway, I am going to make a social commentary here in the sense that there is commentary on the way that a lot of cops act. And just, this is one of the situations where it happens to you or a member of your family all of a sudden, oh crap, but cops are really poorly trained as of late. The whole idea of shoot first, ask questions later. We don't just shoot at people and whatever. And it's still addressed that this is still Frank Castle talking, the guy who kills people because, you know, you need to be punished, right? But cops are supposed to act on a higher level. That's the reason why we made cops in the first place. We're supposed to trust our lives with cops. So yeah, you don't like the social commentary, you're probably not going to like my channel because I talk about this stuff. What do you call it? So anyway, I do like that that's addressed. One of the big things that has always bothered me is us military guys, us soldiers, actually get trained. Obviously, haven't been a soldier in a number of years, but us soldiers are so much better trained and held to such higher standards than police are, and that bugs me. That bugs me. I almost got killed by a cop when I came back from overseas, which would have been a goddamn travesty. Anyway, so enough of all that good stuff. Frank Castle is just going around and he's dealing with all these different people. He winds up dealing with the Scarlet Witch, which was probably the thing that I liked the least about this book. I didn't like how nutso she was, and I know she can be nuts. And she's had her memories messed with enough times, and that's when she does go the most nuts. So I'm not saying it's completely out of character for her. I am saying I didn't like it. It was really weird. It was really weird. Anyway, I will say, I won't tell you, I'm not telling you a whole lot about the comic book, and I'm definitely not going to tell you about how the comic book ends, but I will tell you, or show you, what the next cover looks like. So, oh man, we can finally learn about T'Challa? Nice. Nice. I'm looking forward to that. So, I'm liking this comic book. I'm liking the way that Tini Howard wrote this. I can't remember anything off. I know that I've read several things by her. I don't think I've read any series by her. I remember one time somebody says, oh, Tini Howard is actually a guy. Well, this one I did actually look up. I looked up Tini Howard and I saw her Twitter and looks like a girl. So, you know, hey. But, excuse me. Yeah, I like the way that she writes. All right, I don't know how many of her books I've read before, comic books or otherwise, that I've read before. I saw on her Twitter that she writes Rick and Morty regularly, but I don't read Rick and Morty. I've never really watched the TV. I think I've watched one episode, season 3, whatever. But anyway, I do like this. If this is the way that she typically writes, I'm going to need to see her on a regular superhero series at some point, or her own creator-controlled stuff. So off to Image Comics you go, right? This was a really fun comic book. I liked reading this comic book. The art, there were some things I didn't like about the art, but I'm also going to put a little addendum on that because there were a bunch of things that I loved on here. So not liking something as opposed to loving something else is one thing or another. But what I do like is that even though you could tell that the art style is all the same, it doesn't look like, you know, who's the artist on this again? The name I couldn't pronounce. Damien. Let's just go with Damien, all right? Even though Damien is still drawing the whole entire book in one specific art style, which is nothing wrong with that. It's just there's nothing exceptional about that either. The trick of it is that the way that certain of these panels were presented, the way that sometimes there's an overlap, was actually really cool. When you look at this, looks like it should be confusing, right? But no, when you're reading it, it actually just flows expertly, and just little tiny things. Damien is very careful about how he does out of border art. and it works. It actually works really well when he does do it. So this whole comic book from beginning to end, I think it was pretty hot. I really like the way that this worked. Again, some things I didn't like, but it doesn't mean that it was bad. It's just it wasn't necessarily my flavor. Anyway, still recommending this title. I like how you got Donny Cates is in charge. Technically, he is in charge. He said, he didn't use those words, but that's what he meant. He's in charge of this entire, he's running this entire arc, this entire Marvel Knights thing. Well, at the same time, there's a bunch of different writers jumping on and actually doing, I don't know, I guess the legwork, you'd say. So, cool. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Donnie on delegation, right? This was fun. And I really can't wait to see how this is going to end. With this issue, a lot of people have been asking me, hey, is this actually in our modern world? Again, it's still very hard to say, but what I will say is that depends on Marvel Knights. Since this is still a part of Marvel Knights, and I'm not seeing Marvel Knights referenced, I'm not seeing it not referenced, it's hard to really tell if this is actually in continuity or not. I would like to know the answer, but I'd actually like to know the answer in the comic book, and I'm certain that we're going to find out about that in the end, all right? So when the final issue goes. So I'm cool with suspension of disbelief until, because we do actually know this isn't an ongoing series. This is going to be a very limited engagement. So I'm cool with waiting until the end to find out. And I think it's only going to 5 issues. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. But yeah, I don't see anything about that. Anyway, good stuff. All right, Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.